Jamie had always been the kind of person who found comfort in the familiar. Growing up in a small coastal town where everyone knew everyone else's business, Jamie had learned early on to create a bubble of privacy, a shield against the world's prying eyes. This shield came in many forms: books, music, and most importantly, a well-worn navy blue hoodie that had been a constant companion for years. It wasn't particularly special to look at, faded from countless washes, with tiny holes beginning to form at the cuffs. But to Jamie, it was like a second skin, a portable safe space in a world that sometimes felt overwhelming. The hoodie had been there through late-night study sessions in college, through heartbreaks and celebrations, through rainy afternoon walks and early morning coffee runs. It smelled like home, like security, like all the places Jamie had ever felt safe. Some friends teased about the attachment, suggesting maybe it was time for an upgrade, but Jamie would just smile and pull the soft fabric closer. Some things weren't meant to be replaced. Alex entered Jamie's life like a sudden summer storm, unexpected, intense, and impossible to ignore. They met at a mutual friend's birthday gathering, where Alex's laugh carried across the room, drawing Jamie's attention like a magnet. Alex had this way of making everyone feel seen, asking questions that went beyond small talk and actually listening to the answers. With dark, curly hair that seemed to have a mind of its own and eyes that crinkled at the corners when smiling, Alex had an effortless charm that Jamie found both intimidating and irresistible. They were different in many ways. Where Jamie was cautious and thoughtful, Alex was spontaneous and bold. Jamie planned weeks in advance. Alex decided things on a whim. Jamie preferred quiet evenings at home. Alex knew the name of every bartender in town. But somehow, these differences created a balance rather than a divide. They began as acquaintances, became friends, and then found themselves in that undefined territory where glances linger a bit too long and accidental touches send electricity through veins. The night Jamie lost the hoodie was unusually cold for early fall. A group had gathered at the beach for an impromptu bonfire, and as the night progressed and the temperature dropped, Jamie noticed Alex shivering slightly, arms wrapped around knees pulled tight to chest. Without thinking twice, Jamie had slipped off the navy hoodie and offered it to Alex, who accepted with a grateful smile that made Jamie's heart skip a beat. "I'll give it back soon," Alex had promised, pulling the oversized garment over goosebump-covered arms. Jamie had nodded, trying to ignore how right it looked on Alex, how the sight of someone else wearing something so personal created a strange intimacy between them. Days passed, and the hoodie remained with Alex. Jamie thought about asking for it back several times, but always stopped short of actually doing so. There was something about knowing Alex was wearing it, sleeping in it perhaps, that made Jamie hesitate. It was as if a part of Jamie was with Alex even when they were apart, a thought that was both comforting and terrifying in its implications. They continued to see each other in group settings, exchanging glances across crowded rooms, finding excuses to sit next to each other, their conversations flowing easily until someone else would inevitably interrupt. Each time, Jamie would notice the absence of the hoodie and wonder when or if it would return. It became a symbol of something unspoken between them, a thread connecting them across the distance. 2 weeks after the bonfire, Jamie received a text from Alex. "Can I come by tomorrow? I have something that belongs to you." Jamie's heart raced at the message, fingers hovering over the phone screen for several long moments before typing a casual, "Sure, anytime after 2 works for me." The response came almost immediately. "See you at 2:01 then." Jamie could almost hear Alex's teasing tone through the text, could picture the playful smile that would accompany such a message. That night, Jamie barely slept, thoughts racing with possibilities. Was this just about returning the hoodie, or was there more to it? Had Alex felt the same electricity, the same pull? Or was Jamie reading too much into a simple act of returning a borrowed item? By morning, Jamie had played out a dozen different scenarios in mind, each one more unlikely than the last. The hours until 2 p.m. crawled by with excruciating slowness. Jamie cleaned the apartment twice, changed outfits 3 times, and finally settled on jeans and a simple white t-shirt. Casual, but not too casual. At exactly 2:01, there was a knock at the door, and Jamie took a deep breath before opening it. Alex stood in the hallway, holding the neatly folded navy hoodie, looking slightly nervous, an unusual expression for someone who typically exuded confidence. "Hi," Alex said, voice softer than usual. "I brought your hoodie back. Thanks for letting me borrow it." The words were simple, but something in Alex's eyes suggested there was more to say. Jamie invited Alex in, offering coffee or tea, anything to prolong the visit. They settled on the couch, the hoodie resting between them like a bridge connecting two islands. Their conversation started hesitantly, with updates about work and friends, but gradually eased into the comfortable rhythm they'd established over the past few months. Jamie noticed that Alex seemed distracted, glancing at the hoodie occasionally, as if gathering courage for something. Finally, during a lull in the conversation, Alex picked up the hoodie and held it out. "I washed it," Alex said, "but I'm afraid it still smells a bit like my laundry detergent." Jamie took it, fingers brushing against Alex's in the exchange, that familiar spark igniting at the contact. The hoodie was warm, as if it had absorbed some of Alex's body heat, and Jamie could detect the faint scent of lavender and something uniquely Alex clinging to the fabric. "I missed it," Jamie admitted, hugging the hoodie close. "It's silly, I know, but this hoodie has been with me through a lot." Alex smiled, moving slightly closer on the couch. "It's not silly. We all have things that make us feel safe." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. "I liked wearing it, though. It felt like having a piece of you with me." The confession hung in the air between them, changing the atmosphere in the room. Jamie looked up to find Alex watching intently, eyes searching for a reaction. In that moment, all the careful walls Jamie had built seemed to crumble, leaving nothing but raw vulnerability. "I liked thinking about you wearing it," Jamie confessed, voice barely above a whisper. Something shifted in Alex's expression then, a decision being made, hesitation giving way to determination. Alex reached for the hoodie still clutched in Jamie's hands and gently took it. Before Jamie could question the action, Alex had moved even closer and was carefully pulling the hoodie over Jamie's head, not all the way on, but creating a small tent-like space that enclosed both their faces. In the dim, filtered light beneath the fabric, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Jamie could feel Alex's breath, warm and slightly shaky, could see the flecks of gold in those familiar eyes now just inches away. Time seemed to slow as Alex leaned forward, closing the distance between them until their lips met in a soft, questioning kiss. The kiss was gentle at first, a tentative exploration, but as Jamie responded, it deepened into something more certain. Under the shelter of the hoodie, in their own private world, everything that had been left unsaid found expression in the press of lips, in the gentle touch of Alex's hand cupping Jamie's cheek. It felt like coming home and embarking on an adventure all at once, familiar and thrilling in equal measure. When they finally pulled apart, still hidden beneath the hoodie, both were breathing heavily, foreheads resting against each other. "I've wanted to do that for so long," Alex whispered, thumb tracing the outline of Jamie's lower lip. "Every time I wore this hoodie, all I could think about was you." Jamie smiled, heart racing with a mixture of joy and disbelief. "Is that why you kept it for 2 weeks?" Alex laughed softly, the sound intimate in their shared space. "Maybe. Or maybe I just liked having an excuse to see you again." Eventually, they emerged from beneath the hoodie, both slightly flushed and unable to stop smiling. The world around them looked exactly the same, but everything had changed. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, sharing stories they'd held back before, admitting to moments when they'd almost reached out, but fear had held them back. Each revelation was a gift, a piece of themselves offered and accepted with care. As evening approached, they ordered takeout and watched a movie, though neither paid much attention to the plot. They were too aware of each other, of Alex's arm draped casually around Jamie's shoulders, of Jamie's head resting comfortably against Alex's chest, of fingers intertwined as if they'd been holding hands for years instead of hours. The days that followed were both wonderful and terrifying. Jamie, who had always approached life with caution, now found himself navigating unfamiliar emotional territory. What did this mean for their friendship? Was this the beginning of something serious, or would the intensity fade? These questions circled in Jamie's mind, creating moments of doubt that clouded otherwise perfect days. Alex noticed these moments of withdrawal and addressed them head-on, another contrast to Jamie's tendency to avoid difficult conversations. "Talk to me," Alex would say, creating space for Jamie's fears without judgment. They discussed what they wanted, what scared them, how quickly or slowly they should take things. These conversations, though sometimes uncomfortable, strengthened the foundation they were building. Their friends noticed the shift in their relationship immediately. Some had apparently been placing bets on how long it would take them to get together, while others were surprised, having missed the signs that had seemed so obvious to the couple in retrospect. The teasing was good-natured, the support genuine, but still, Jamie felt exposed in a new way, their relationship now open to outside observation and commentary. One night, about a month after the kiss under the hoodie, they faced their first real challenge. At a friend's dinner party, an ex of Alex's made several pointed comments about Alex's pattern of intense but short-lived relationships. The remarks were clearly intended to plant seeds of doubt, and despite trying to brush them off, Jamie found them taking root. The drive home was quiet, tension building with each passing mile. At Jamie's apartment, the dam finally broke. "Is that true?" Jamie asked, voice strained with the effort of appearing casual. "Do you have a pattern of moving on quickly?" Alex sighed, running a hand through already disheveled hair. "I've had relationships that didn't work out," Alex admitted. "Some of them ended sooner rather than later. But it feels different." There was a pause, a moment of vulnerability that made Jamie's heart ache. "You feel different." They talked late into the night, laying bare their past relationships, the mistakes they'd made, the lessons they'd learned. It was painful at times, but necessary, like lancing a wound to allow it to heal properly. By morning, exhausted but lighter, they had reached a new understanding, a promise to communicate openly, to address fears as they arose rather than letting them fester. As weeks turned into months, the navy blue hoodie became a symbol of their relationship. It migrated between their apartments, sometimes worn by Jamie, sometimes by Alex, a shared possession that belonged to both of them. On cold nights, they would sometimes pull it over both their heads like they had that first day, creating their private sanctuary where they could whisper secrets and dreams against each other's lips. 6 months after that first kiss, they decided to move in together. It was Jamie who suggested it, surprising both of them with the readiness to take such a significant step. They found a small apartment with big windows and a view of the park, a place that belonged to neither of them individually but could become theirs together. On moving day, surrounded by boxes and the chaos of combining two lives, Alex disappeared into the bedroom and returned holding the navy hoodie, now even more worn than before. "Remember when I returned this to you?" Alex asked, a smile playing at the corners of those lips that Jamie now knew so well. Jamie nodded, abandoning the box of kitchen utensils to move closer. "How could I forget? It was the best day of my life." Alex's smile widened. "Until today, right?" Before Jamie could respond, Alex was pulling the hoodie over both their heads, recreating that moment from months ago. "I love you," Alex whispered in the dim light beneath the fabric. "I've loved you since before I knew what love was supposed to feel like." Jamie's heart swelled with emotion. "I love you too, more than I ever thought possible." Their kiss was different from that first one. Deeper, more certain, filled with the knowledge of each other they'd gained over months together. When they emerged from beneath the hoodie this time, they were no longer two people starting something new, but partners continuing a journey they'd committed to walking together. Years later, the navy hoodie would still hang in their shared closet, too worn for regular use, but too precious to discard. It had become more than just a piece of clothing or even a symbol of their relationship. It was a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest gestures, the loan of a hoodie on a cold night, its return accompanied by a kiss that changed everything. Whenever they would tell the story of how they got together, friends would smile at the romance of it, the sweetness of that moment beneath the hoodie. But only Jamie and Alex truly understood what that moment had meant, how it had required courage from both of them, how it had been the culmination of months of unspoken feelings, and how it had been the beginning of a love that would continue to deepen with each passing year. And on anniversaries, no matter where they were or what else they had planned, they would always find a moment to pull the old navy hoodie over both their heads, to create that private world that belonged only to them, and to share a kiss that tasted of both nostalgia and promise, a reminder of where they had begun and a celebration of how far they had come. Let me tell you why this story matters beyond just the romance of it. In a world where relationships often begin with algorithmic matches and carefully curated online personas, there's something profoundly meaningful about connections that develop organically through small, seemingly insignificant moments. The hoodie wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was a vehicle for vulnerability, a way for two people to bridge the gap between friendship and something deeper without having to find the perfect words. We all have our equivalents of Jamie's hoodie, objects or rituals that carry emotional significance beyond their practical purpose. Maybe it's a coffee mug that reminds you of someone special, a playlist that transports you back to a specific moment in time, or a well-worn book with notes scribbled in the margins. These touchstones help us connect not just with our own memories and emotions, but with each other. Jamie and Alex's story reminds us that love doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it builds quietly in the background of our lives, revealing itself in the gentle offering of comfort on a cold night, in the nervous return of a borrowed item, in the courage it takes to create a moment of intimacy and see if it's welcomed or rejected. Their journey also speaks to the importance of allowing relationships to unfold at their own pace. In an age of instant gratification, there's value in the slow burn, in the gradual discovery of another person, layer by layer. Jamie's caution and Alex's patience created space for something authentic to grow between them, something built on a foundation strong enough to weather the inevitable storms. As you go about your day after hearing this story, perhaps you'll look at the objects around you differently, considering what emotional weight they carry. Perhaps you'll think about the unspoken connections in your own life, the relationships hovering in that undefined territory where possibility lives. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the courage to pull the metaphorical hoodie over someone's head and take a chance on turning possibility into reality. Because in the end, that's what Jamie and Alex's story teaches us, that sometimes the greatest adventures begin not with a bold leap into the unknown, but with the simple act of making room for someone else in the safe spaces we've created for ourselves. And in that sharing, we often find that our capacity for love and connection is far greater than we ever imagined it could be. Total_char_count, 18,739.